Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Ustadha Tasneem. In case you don't already know me, I'm the assistant head at Date Valley School, and I'm also the head of early years. And I am here to talk to you and present to you a workshop all about play. It's called Learning to Play, Playing to Learn. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and then we'll be able to make a start. Okay, Bismillah. So first of all, what is play? So play can be defined as what children and young people do when they follow their own interests and ideas in their own way and for their own reasons. And it can also be described as what children and young people do when they're not being told what to do by adults. Having time and space to play gives children the opportunity to meet and socialize with their friends, keeps them physically active, and gives the freedom to choose what they want to do. So play can be any activity, imaginary or with toys, that is interesting for them, chosen for them, fun for them, and something that they want to do. Play encompasses children's behavior, which is freely chosen, personally directed, and intrinsically motivated, and it is performed for no external goal or reward, and it's a fundamental and integral part of healthy development. Now, children have the right to play. So in the Article 31 of the United Nations on the Rights of the Child document, it affirms that the right of the child to rest and leisure and to engage in play and recreational activities appropriate to the age of the child. So why is play so important? So it's an essential part of every child's life, and it's vital for the enjoyment of childhood, as well as social, emotional, intellectual, and physical development. Young children naturally explore and learn through play. Play is a fun, motivating, and meaningful way to learn. It enables children to learn at their own level and pace while making connections. And playing isn't just fun, it's also the best way for young children to learn. By playing, children can practice all the skills that they'll need as they grow up. So these are some of the skills that children develop through play. So you have cognitive skills. So these are skills such as attention and concentration, thinking skills, memory skills as well. So those all fall under cognitive skills. You have imagination and creativity, communication skills, and social interaction, which go hand in hand. So being able to communicate with another child in the setting, or perhaps an adult, to communicate their wants or their needs, to ensure that it doesn't lead to any kind of negative behavior such as biting or fighting, which can happen. So this is something that we covered in our first workshop, all about speaking and listening. You have resilience as well, which develops through play. So if something is a bit tricky, then children need to develop that skill of not giving up and keeping on trying. And if something goes wrong, it doesn't matter. Physical skills as well, emotional regulation, so knowing how to control their emotions so that they don't have an outburst or meltdown. And at the heart of everything is their well-being. So there are different types of learning through play. There is free play, which is child-initiated play. And this is entirely initiated and directed by the child. And sometimes adults can come in and interact if the opportunity arises. But sometimes the role of the adult is actually just to step back and observe what is happening. And if there is an opportunity to maybe extend the learning following the child's interests, so it's actually very much child directed. It's not the adult coming in with their own agenda and trying to steer the play in a certain direction. Then you have the adult-led play, which is also called active learning. And this is initiated and directed by the adult. And normally the adult has a specific learning intention, which they want to get out of this form of play. So at our school, we have a mixture of both. So we have the child initiated play, and we also have adult-led play. So we've already understood that play is one of the main ways in which children learn and develop. It helps to build self-worth by giving a child a sense of his or her own abilities and to feel good about themselves. And because it's fun, children often become absorbed in what they are doing. So these are the different social stages of play. So initially, when a child is very young, when they're a baby, they will do this, they will start off with this unoccupied play. And there's no clear purpose behind it, and that's just the beginning of play. Then we move on to solitary play. So that's what you tend to see when the child is around 1 or 2 years old. And they play on their own. They don't seem to notice other children sitting around them or playing nearby, and they just get on and play by themselves. Then when they get to the age of about 2 or 3, you start seeing onlooker play. And so in our nursery setting, we see some children who are onlookers at the moment. So they watch other children play, and they may ask questions, but they don't join in. And it may be that they watch and then they try and do that same activity themselves later on, but they don't join in with someone else's play. Then you get parallel play, which is also something we see in nursery. So it's where children play side by side with other children, but they don't actually interact, but they do pay attention to each other. And then you start moving into associative play, where children start asking questions. They have similar goals, but there are no set rules. And then that eventually leads to social play. And that's where children begin to share ideas and toys and follow established rules and guidelines. So I want to show you an example of something that we did in nursery recently. So I had these lovely massive boxes. I brought them in from home, and I just put them into one of the nursery classrooms, and I just left them there and just invited the children to come and have a look and see what was in the other room. And they were very, very excited. There was a lot of talk about it was a house. Someone said it was a castle, and they instantly, the vast majority of the children went straight and tried to explore. They found some crayons, they found some whiteboard pens. You can see in the corner on the shelf over there, there are some whiteboard pens. They got those pens and they started mark making, and they started decorating their house. So some of them drew windows, some of them tried writing letters and things like that. So I want to show you within about 30 minutes what one of the boxes looks like. So you can see it's been graffitied, it's well and truly there's been a lot of mark making going on here. And it's not just on the outside of the box, but also on the inside as well. So the children, they were very interested in the texture of the box. It was quite a sturdy, hard box. So, and it had corrugated cardboard. So it had a bumpy texture. So they were very interested in how the texture made a difference to their mark making. There was this is just a box, but the amount of conversation and interaction that came out of this box, it was fantastic. So we had children playing hide and seek, we had children knocking on the door, seeing if they could come in. We had children who were very quiet, who are normally very quiet in our setting, absolutely thrilled. We had children who ended up with pen all over their face, I'm not quite sure, and all over their hands as well. And I'm not quite sure if they left school on that day looking the same way, but there was a high level of engagement, lots and lots of interaction. Children absolutely loved it. So we as practitioners, but you as parents as well, we need to provide children with a range of playthings, and that will help them to learn in a number of ways. So the kind of things we ensure that we provide access to at school is sand and water play. So that introduces children to science and maths. So for example, learning that water is fluid, it's not solid, it can be measured in different kinds of containers. Sand also has those similar properties. Knowing that wet sand and dry sand are very different, and the textures and forces can be introduced in science as well. Playing with dough or clay, drawing, painting pictures, dressing up, all of these things encourage creativity and imagination, expression of feelings. It can also help with mark making as well. It also helps with their physical development as well with their hands. We'll talk a little bit about that a bit later on. Building blocks, fantastic, very open-ended resource. Jigsaws as well, shape sorters. These can all help with recognizing different shapes and sizes, being able to put things in size order, developing logic, talking about textures. There are so many things we can do with blocks, which I'll cover a little bit later on. Playing ball games, dancing, running, climbing, all help with body movement, body strength, flexibility, coordination. Games help with turn taking, sharing and mixing with others, and singing and playing instruments that make sounds help to develop rhythm, listening and hearing. So all of these are fantastic resources, fantastic types of activities that will enable children to have a really strong foundation in all of the areas of learning, so that they can then, as they move forward with their education, they can develop, they'll have that very strong foundation, which they'll then be able to build upon. So learning needs to be fun. Children, young children cannot sit still. They want to be jumping and moving about. So it's important that learning is fun at a young age, and it needs to be about doing things with them that they like, not things that you want them to do. And they may find unusual ways of doing things. So they may discover that they don't actually need to paint with paintbrushes. They can use their hands, they can use their feet, they can use sponges, they can use leaves. It doesn't have to be with paintbrushes. We can show them how things work, but then if they want to experiment, then that's up to them. And it's important that they get that opportunity to try things out for themselves. So play is under threat. That sounds quite menacing, doesn't it? But a study by Fisher-Price suggests that play really is under siege. Now, you may be a little bit cynical saying, well, Fisher-Price is a toy company, so obviously they would say that because they want people to buy their toys. But the ideas of what constitutes play are very different to how they were perhaps when we were growing up. So parents nowadays consider flashcards a kind of play. And I can tell you as an educator, flashcards are not a type of play. So they are an educational tool, but they are not something to be used as a play tool. And there's a variety of reasons why play is under siege or it's under threat. So one reason is that there are over-exaggerated scientific claims. So I know when I was pregnant with my first child, there was a lot of talk of classical music. Listening to classical music is very good, and it boosts your unborn baby's intellect and intelligence. And by listening to Mozart or whatever, you're going to end up with a much more intelligent baby. But actually, studies have found that that claim is not really very true. And it was based on I think only one survey, one study rather than a huge, like medical study. There are societal forces as well. So there seems to be this notion that if your child is normal, then that's terrible. that everyone has to be extraordinary, and that's not always possible. So actually, society and our community makes us feel that actually, no, the child shouldn't be playing, they should be writing and reading and, doing maths and, sitting at a table and chair. And obviously there are marketing ploys as well, because, if you have a product called Baby Einstein, for example, then it's going to make you think that, well, if my child plays with this kind of a toy, then they will become as intelligent as Einstein. So obviously there is a marketing element. And we live in an educational arena where there is a theme of continuous testing. And this kind of environment, the drill and kill learning environment, tends to produce children who are very aggressive, very anxious, and they won't settle for anything less than perfection. So making mistakes is a big no-no. And it will cause all kinds of emotional issues if they make a mistake, because it's going to be the end of the world. Whereas children who learn in a more playful environment, such as a Montessori environment like we have in our early years, they tend to be more emotionally balanced. They're able to self-regulate. They have fewer behavioral issues. They develop more independence, so they don't rely on the adult to make them learn. They actually are in control of their own learning. They end up being less stressed and being more enthusiastic about their learning, which actually helps them perform better academically. So play lays the foundation for literacy, and it does this in a variety of ways. So through play, children learn to make and practice new sounds. They can try out new vocabulary on their own or with friends, and they can exercise their imagination through storytelling. And I'm sure you remember from my previous workshop on speaking and listening that I said that if a child doesn't know how to speak a word, they won't be able to write it down. So it's really essential that our children speak a lot and they get to explore vocabulary, and even if they are nonsense words, but getting to explore words so that they are able to write them down later on. So play is learning. I think we've all got that message so far. So it nurtures development and fulfills a baby's or a child's inborn need to learn. And play takes many forms, from shaking a rattle to peekaboo to hide and seek. And it can be done by a child alone, with another child, with a group of children, or with an adult. So play allows adults to communicate with children. So adults can support play by giving children opportunities to play and by knowing when to intervene and when not to. So it's important that as adults, we know that there's times when we should interfere or maybe get involved somehow. And there are times when we really should stay out and just stand back and watch and see what happens. Play gives children the chance to be spontaneous. So you may think that your child should be rolling the truck on the ground, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only thing the truck can be used for. Maybe they'll find out that actually a truck is really good at as a stacking toy. Maybe they'll discover that their feet are fantastic paintbrushes, for example. It may be extremely messy and you may not want it in your house, but it gives them that opportunity to just try things out. Play gives children choice. So having enough toys or activities to choose from will allow children to express themselves. So you'll then start to discover what kind of activities they like, what they tend to go towards. So we notice this a lot within our setting at school. Having too many toys also, there is a negative effect of that. And sometimes you'll find that children have got so many toys and they end up playing with the packaging of a toy, for example, because it's just more interesting sometimes the toys that we get nowadays are very prescriptive, whereas a box is fantastic because it can be anything at all. So as I showed you from that previous photo, a box can be a house, it can be a castle, it can be a boat, it can be a car, it can be so many things. And it just offers that opportunity for imagination. Play gives children space, so they need to be able to practice physical movement, balance, and to test their own limits. So what we have found with our reception children, so since we have had the introduction of bubbles, our reception children don't play in the same space as nursery. So our reception children actually have started using the concrete area. And before anyone panics, everyone is safe there because they're being monitored, they're being supervised, but actually providing that space for them has allowed them to develop in their physical development. So those children who would trip over themselves, for no reason at all, they actually developed that core strength to be able to balance, to be able to run. It gave them, that they are, and actually when they run around the playground, the concrete area of our playground, they actually get out of breath, which is good for them as well. Okay, and it helps them to test their own limits. That can I run a bit faster? Can I run, one more lap around? What happens when I do that? How hard does my heart beat? All of these kind of things. It allows our children to develop. Play gives adults the chance to learn how to play again. So in the stress of life, one of the best things we can do is actually get involved in our child's play. And one of the most challenging things for us is actually incorporating ourselves in play and allowing the children to direct us rather than us give the direction, and just allowing ourselves to lower our guard and be a bit silly. So for me, and I know for Mudira as well, I'm in class 3 afternoons, but actually I find in the morning I go down to early years quite a lot so that I can play with them. And just spending some time with them makes me very happy, and then it makes me forget temporarily some of my worries. So because the children are so innocent, they don't really care about your stresses. They want you to join in their play. Play allows adults to learn their children's body language. So knowing when you should incorporate yourself in your child's play is key. And your child may not say no, or they may not say yes, but it may be in the way they're acting that makes you realize that you need to back off, or maybe now is the time to join in. Play teaches adults patience and understanding. So if you do choose to join in your child's play, then you need to make sure you don't take it over or you force your ideas into their play. Structured adult-led activities have their time and place, but it's important for children to also have that control and decide their own play as well. And play is fun. Learning to play well, both by themselves and with others, sets children up to be contented and sociable. And when they are contented and sociable, they are ready to learn. So I'm going to talk a little bit about outdoor play. So outdoor play is fundamental for our children's health and well-being. So there are so many benefits of being in sunlight, which you don't get from being under the artificial light that we are normally in when we're indoors. So obviously the sunlight is a source of vitamin D, which is essential for bone growth, for healthy bone growth. But also it impacts on sleep as well. So actually by being out in the daytime and being in the sunlight, even if it's a cloudy day, actually it's actually more beneficial to be outside than inside under the artificial light. So what studies have found is that being out in natural daylight enables the child's body clock to sync with the nature around them, so that and that eventually has an impact on sleep, because as the day gets darker and the sunlight goes, it it allows a hormone called melatonin to be released, which enables the sleep pattern to get kicked in. So now I'm going to talk about outdoor play. And outdoor play is fundamental for children's health and well-being. So there are many benefits for being in the sunlight. So as I'm sure we all know, sunlight is the main source of vitamin D, which is essential for bone growth. But it also has a major impact on sleep, but not in terms of making a child go to sleep earlier. So what happens is when people are exposed to natural daylight, even when it's cloudy, it allows the body to sync with the natural rhythm of day and night. What this then does is it promotes the release of a hormone called melatonin, which is the sleep-inducing hormone. So by having melatonin released at the right time, it enables you to be able to have a good inner body clock, which enables you to then go to sleep and have a good sleep as well. So if you're finding that your child goes to sleep very late, then actually what you actually need to do is increase the amount of outdoor play that they have, because by doing that and by exposing them to the natural daylight, it enables their body clock to sync so that they can then start going to bed at a more decent time. It doesn't mean that they're going to sleep longer necessarily. So don't think that if you leave your child outside all day long that they're going to sleep, for 12 hours straight, for example, because that may not be possible. But it will definitely allow that that natural body clock to get started. So outdoor play provides so many rich sensory experiences which are essential for growing minds. So it allows engagement with the wonder and mystery of the natural world. It offers the space and freedom to try things out, explore, experiment, and investigate how the world works. Now, the space is a crucial thing because, inside there's furniture, maybe the rooms are small, things can get in the way. You can't just jump and, twirl around and do whatever you like. Whereas outdoors, you have that huge space or larger space where you're able to make those gross motor skills, with your whole body, whole arm, for example, to develop your core strength. Whereas, when you're indoors, you have more fine motor skills. So, you can do painting on both indoors and outdoors, but your painting outdoors will be, on a much bigger scale. So it could be that you use, you paint the wall, for example, and you can paint with water rather than paint with proper paint. But, providing that large canvas allows for large body movements to happen. Engagement with key concepts such as gradient, gravity, speed, energy, and things as life, natural things such as life and death, they can all come into outdoor play. There are the opportunities for adventure, risk, and challenge. So I'm going to talk about risky play a little bit later on, and meaningful learning in all areas of the curriculum. And what we as teachers notice is that when children are outside and when they're outside learning, they actually learn a lot better. So regardless of the weather, we try and make sure that, especially for our early years, we try and make sure that we go outside and do the learning outside as well. And what you will notice with our outdoor provision is that it mirrors what we do inside. So it's not that on the outside, in the outdoor play area, we are just focusing on the physical development. So we have, climbing frames and bikes and things like that, but we also offer the opportunity for maths to take place outdoors, writing as well, English, reading, as well as all of the other aspects of the curriculum. But we just find that by being outdoors, children respond much better. They actually learn a lot better. So as adults, we need to make sure that children are safe and protected in all weathers. That's why for early years, we asked for welly boots and a rain jacket and rain trousers, so that no matter what the weather is like outside, we can still go out and play. And the children will be safe, they'll be warm, and they'll be protected. But just because it's raining, it's not going to stop them from learning outside. So we need to ensure that the equipment is safe and age and stage appropriate. We should be able to join in when invited into children's play or when we feel that we can. We should be enthusiastic about being outside. So there's no point in taking your child outside and then just standing there, just being really grumpy going, it's really cold. So there's only one way to warm up when it's cold outside, and that's to run around or join in and play. And it's essential that adults make sure that all children are included and can take part. So outdoor play provision has to be very inclusive and not leave anyone out. So those children who want the opportunity to take part can do so. So research suggests that children's access to good play provision can increase their self-awareness, self-esteem, self-respect, improve and maintain their physical and mental health, give them the opportunity to mix with other children, allow them to increase their confidence through developing new skills, promote imagination, independence, and creativity, offer opportunities for children of all abilities and backgrounds to play together, provide opportunities for developing social skills and learning, build resilience through risk-taking and challenge, problem-solving, and dealing with new and novel situations, and it provides the opportunity to learn about their environment and the wider community. So all of this through play and not a worksheet in sight. So parents should feel more secure knowing that their children are happy, safe, and enjoying themselves. I think if we've learned anything from the lockdown, it's actually that our children's well-being and our own well-being is so crucial. Our material possessions, they can come and go, and we won't really be badly affected if we don't have some of the things that we do have, but actually our well-being, our ability to play, our ability to socialize, these are actually crucial rights for us to be healthy mentally and physically. So families benefit from healthier and happier children. Buildings and facilities used by play services are frequently seen as a focal point for communities. So we're not just talking about, looking after ourselves as a family, but also looking after the community. It offers the opportunities for social interaction and build that social cohesion and community spirit. Public outdoor spaces have an important role in the everyday lives of young people and children. So, parks, other green spaces are especially important for children, and it allows everyone to spend time together. So now moving on to block play. So block play can boost children's developments like few other activities. It offers open-ended, creative, and valuable play and learning experiences. And it offers the children the freedom to explore, take apart, and put together any block-based creation they can think of. So there are 7 stages to the development of block play. So initially you start off with a child who will just carry blocks, won't do anything with them apart from maybe hit them together. So, they're exploring the textures, the sounds, the size of them, but they don't actually do anything with them. That then moves on to where they start building in stage 2. So they stack the blocks either horizontally to make a tower, or horizontally to make rows or walls, for example, or vertically to make a tower. You then move on to bridging, where you have a block that bridges the space between 2 blocks, which then moves on to enclosures. So it's where you purposely place blocks to enclose a space and make like a boundary wall. Then moves on to building structures which have patterns, so symmetry. You can see lots of mathematics coming in here. You know, decorative items as well. So, you know, you have these lovely arches over here. You can see the symmetry. You can see there's, you know, some kind of sense of balance as well. So those triangular prisms there, they've been manipulated so that they can balance properly. You then move into stage 6, where you start naming structures. So it's not just I'm building something, but I'm building a castle, and using all of those skills that they've already learned and actually applying it to a building that a child names. And then that moves on to building representations of actual buildings. So, you know, knowing that it's Windsor Castle or Buckingham Palace, for example, and the children tend to rely on what they already know. So if they know about a certain castle or a certain building that's near them, they may use that, or they may, you know, and they may use that in their play. So the benefits of block play. So there's their imagination. So children are free to follow their own ideas. They can embark on a voyage of discovery, and they can share in the development of their friends' creations. So block play is something that you can either do independently and solitary, or you can actually join forces with your friends and try and build something really huge and really massive and really amazing. Self-expression, so children are able to express themselves through their play. So, and it doesn't rely on spoken language. So those children who are bilingual, perhaps they have not got a good grasp of the English language, or they're non-verbal, for example, they can actually communicate through their play, especially with block play. Problem solving. So blocks offer a great platform to develop problem solving and reasoning skills. And this can be deliberate, with children consciously working on a solution, or as a natural consequence of play. So they learn firsthand what works and what doesn't work. So for example, if something doesn't balance and everything tips over, they learn to develop a solution for that so that it doesn't happen again. Mathematics. So due to the many shapes, sizes, and colors on offer, blocks offer so many opportunities to practice important math skills. So it can cover measures, number, symmetry, balance, estimation, patterns. The list goes on and on. You know, weighing as well. So, you know, we can extend play that, you know, if something is large, does that mean it's heavier? And, you know, offering those questions to develop thinking. Physical development. So block play promotes the development of spatial awareness, develops high and hand-eye coordination as children reach for, lift, move, build with blocks, strengthening their fingers, hands, and arms. And that's all essential as a precursor to writing. Creativity. So blocks are loose parts, meaning that there's no set way of putting them together. So children have that freedom to combine and recombine in numerous ways, you know, in infinite ways. And us as practitioners, we add resources which will enhance block play. So it may be that we add Play-Doh, we add small world characters, we add paint or pencils to further extend the opportunities for creativity, but also to develop skills in other areas of learning. So science, through exploration of cause and effect and experimentation, children can develop their problem-solving skills. They can come up with a hypothesis and they can actually test it out. They can practice their scientific reasoning, and it will help them to become aware of balance, weight, spatial awareness, gravity as well. So knowing that, you know, when something falls, it's because of the force of gravity. Self-esteem. So children can take risks in their block play, And it's not that big a deal. It doesn't really matter, you know, if something doesn't go right, they can fix things, and it can help them to discover that they can have independent ideas. It gives them that sense of being able to have a go, being able to create and develop something new and unique. Block play also develops their personal, social, and emotional development. So it allows children to work together, to negotiate, to take turns, to share, cooperate, make new friends. So I know that when I provided that box, for example, I saw children playing together who wouldn't normally play together. So it was really good to see that kind of friendship developing. It will also encourages self-reliance, increases attention span, and develops a sense of self. And finally, communication literacy. So as children encounter new experiences through block play, there are countless opportunities for discussion and the development of new vocabulary. And we shouldn't think that children, young children are too young to learn some technical vocabulary. So social interaction with adults around them or their peers unlocks further benefits, and blocks can support story creation and collaborative storytelling. So when children play with blocks, they are learning, you can see there's a whole range of different skills that they learn there: shapes, height, color, size, pattern, symmetry. You know, they learn, so all of those mathematical skills, but then there are all of the cognitive skills, so concentration, trial and error, persistence, all of these soft skills that children need to develop. It's not just about them learning maths and English. They need to develop these skills of leadership and collaboration and, you know, working together, estimation, prediction. All of these different skills comes from working with blocks, playing with blocks. Play-Doh. Now you might be thinking, oh my goodness, what is this that the STEAM telling me to do? But Play-Doh is fantastic. I mean, if you just take a look at this picture, this set of pictures here. So you've got Play-Doh, which is so versatile and amazing. And this little boy here has got his monster truck, and he's decided to roll his monster truck over the Play-Doh. And what that has caused is it's obviously left marks. So you can see there is an element of cause and effect. And you can also see in some of the pictures that there are track marks which are quite light, and then there are these more defined ones here. So that also shows that, you know, when you just drive a car normally, a toy car normally, then it leaves a light mark. But actually, if you press down, then it leaves a much more defined mark there. And so, you know, so much engagement, so much language that can come out of this kind of an activity, just using Play-Doh and cars to develop mark making skills. So you may be thinking, okay, this is all very well that you're going on about how amazing play is, but you know, my child just needs to write. But I want you to take a look at this hand X-ray. So on the left-hand side, this is the hand X-ray of a 7-year-old. And this is the hand X-ray on the right-hand side of a young child, someone who's in early years. And you can see there that the bones aren't developed. So whereas over here in the 7-year-old, the bones are much more developed. You can see the gaps are much, much narrower. And, you know, that's why we wait with formal handwriting. That's why we wait. We don't rush with getting a pencil into their hand, because actually there's a lot more that needs to take place before a pencil gets put into the hand of a child. So we need to not rush them. That doesn't mean that we don't allow them the opportunity to hold crayons and chalks and things like that, but it's not essential for a child to hold a pencil and learn to write their name when they're at the age of 3, because that's something that will develop. So I'm going to go back to the Play-Doh. Play-Doh is fantastic. It's brilliant precursor to writing, and it helps with so many skills that children need to develop before they can actually put a pencil in their hand. So they need to be holding crayons and chalks, you know, those fat ones, not thin ones. The fat ones initially, the ones that they can get a good grip on. They can mark make, so it's what you would call scribbling, but that's actually helping them to develop their writing skills. By developing their vocal, their speech, and making up stories and things like that, that will actually help them to be able to write. Being able to use their core skills, their arm muscles and body muscles, actually helps them with their writing. And they need to be actually interested in letters and words in the first place. Otherwise, why would they write? You know, if it doesn't make any sense to them and they've got no interest, then they're not going to want to write. So children need to do so many skills before they can actually write. So they need to be able to squish Play-Doh, squeeze pegs, thread beads, use scissors, trace with their fingers, create art, squeeze pipettes, sew and lace. All of these other skills actually help a child to be able to write, because it develops that fine motor skill that the children need to develop to hold a pencil. And I just wanted to show you this. So this is a diagram. It's a diagram of progression of mark making. It was done by an occupational therapist. So it just shows the kind of thing you should, the kind of mark making you should expect your child to show at different milestones in their life, and you know, within the first 5 years. And you can see that actually it's pretty basic, right? So, but actually, if at the age of 4 years, 11 months, if they can't make this X, then they will find letter writing really hard. So actually, we need to develop this more. We need to provide more opportunities for our children to be able to mark make and scribble wherever they want, and, you know, draw and just go crazy, but without the pressure of, okay, write the letter A, write B, write C, or ABAC. So, you know, allowing the children to develop their own creativity through mark making. And you can see here, I mean, it's quite tiny, so you might not be able to see it, but there are so many fine motor skills that need to be developed. And actually, some of the things we tend to rush on ahead with wanting our children to write, when actually they need to do things like learn how to unbutton a button, first of all, undo a button, you know, learn how to put their shoes on. I was in nursery just the other day, and so many children had taken their shoes off. I'm not quite sure why, but they couldn't put their shoes back on. And you know, these are 3-4-year-olds who should know how to put their shoes on, and it wasn't that their shoes were hard to put on. It's just you know, there weren't any laces or anything involved. They just didn't know how to put their shoes on by themselves. So sometimes as parents, we mollycoddle or do too much for our children and don't allow them to develop that independence. But you can see here that a child at the age of 2 should be able to unbutton a large button. They should be able to turn pages. They should be able to open a door, screw and unscrew a jar lid, thread shoelaces through a hole. So there's all of these other things that children should be able to do before they can actually get on with doing their writing. By the age of 5, they should be able to manage closing fasteners independently, and by that we're talking about zips. So they should be able to handle zips and their own coat buttons by themselves. You know, there's a lot that they need to do, and they've got to want to write as well. That's really important. There's no point in forcing it on them, because they're going to hate it otherwise. If we make it something fun And if you make it something exciting, then they'll want to do it. But if it's something that you have to sit down and do right now, you've got to write it correctly. So, you know, that's the way A looks. So you've got to write it exactly how it is. Then it's going to be no fun for them. They're just not going to want to do it. So now moving on to risky play. So children need to be kept safe from potential harm and hazards at all times, but they also need to explore and take risks. So risky play allows children to challenge themselves on many levels. So first of all, physically, by climbing a little higher, running a little faster, jumping a little further. Emotionally, so, you know, that sense of feeling out of control or, you know, overcoming their fear. Mentally as well, so learning how to get themselves out of trouble, learning what their boundaries are and that of the environment around them. So children need the opportunity to develop problem-solving skills. They need to be able to experiment. They need to be able to challenge themselves. They need time to practice these skills and develop their body. So children need and instinctively want to be able to take risks, to test their abilities. They're curious. They want to find out what's going to happen if I do this. But obviously, children need the support of adults to be able to take this risk as part of their learning and development. As practitioners, we have a legal duty to identify and reduce or eliminate risk, but there are some risks that are acceptable. So the risk of falling off larger play equipment is quite high, but actually we can minimize it by having adequate supervision, making sure that the equipment is positioned somewhere where it's going to reduce the risk of harm, have crash mats, have particular rules in place so that there's no overcrowding. So, you know, only allowing one child on at a time, for example, so that there's no risk, there's no additional risk of children being harmed and getting hurt. But the benefits will include, you know, children developing their confidence, them being able to expand on their skills because they're able to climb higher, reach further, balance for longer. And they also experience the consequence of taking risks beyond their current ability. And as adults and as practitioners, we need to know when to step in and when to sit back and let the child solve issues by themselves. So the notion is that kids today are rarely permitted to engage in activities that could put them at risk of injury, and that's bad. So if you think back to your childhood, if you never tried to climb a tree, then if you never experimented with it, then you'd never know what you're capable of. And a lovely statement by the health and safety executive about play is that play is great for children's well-being and development. No child will learn about risk if they are wrapped in cotton wool. And the photo over this side is something I saw on social media recently, and it reminded me of my own childhood because I actually have one of these scars on my knee. And I remember how I got the scar, and I remember it was because I was running in a race with my friends, and I was running in a hall, and it had that horrible green carpet, the very thin, rough carpet. And as I was running, I tripped and skidded on the carpet, and I got a lovely carpet burn on my knee, and I have the scar to prove it. But, you know, there is this sense of, if you don't have a scar on your knee or, you know, anywhere else, then did you even have a childhood? Did you even experiment in risky play? Did you even try testing your limits to see, you know, what would happen? You know, I have the scar to prove that I definitely skidded, and I definitely took a couple of risks on the carpet, but did it stop me from carrying on playing? No, it didn't. I just knew that, you know, I just had to be a bit more careful, but it didn't stop me from playing those games. So it's important that we allow our children to learn about risk as well, because they can't be children who grow up never having experienced any kind of scar or any kind of harm, or, you know, they've never experimented with exactly what happens when they do go over their limits. So our words have impact. So we can, you know, as a school, we try and be very positive in our language. It's part of our behavior management system that we try and focus on the positives instead of being quite negative. So instead of saying be careful, think about saying, notice how, there's a massive puddle right in front of you. Don't get wet. Is it really a bad thing if children get wet? Well, maybe if they're not wearing the right kind of clothes, maybe if they're wearing jeans, for example, then yeah, it's not going to be very nice for them to get wet. But if they've actually got, weatherproof clothing, then why can't they get wet? Why can't they splash in the puddles? Saying something like, you might hurt someone, that's basically saying you might hurt someone, so don't do it. So, thinking about what could happen to them if you do that. So allowing the child to think, okay, this is what could happen. Let me see what I can do to minimize that risk. Okay, so allowing that child to have the power to take control of their play. How did you get so dirty? So I know that my nursery staff were a little bit stressed when they saw some of the children with pen all over their face. They were a bit worried that they'd get told off, not by me, but by parents. But the way I looked at it was, well, it's only pen, and the children had a lot of fun. So, there was no harm that's come out of them getting pen on their face. I'm talking about whiteboard pen, not biro. I thought it wasn't supposed to rain and be bad out, but so instead of saying, oh, it's raining, can't go out to play, well, you know what, if we say that in this country, well, it always rains, or it rains so often that we'll end up never being able to go out. So if we're prepared with waterproofs, then let's go out and play. Why not? So being able to turn all of those negative things, negative warnings, into something that could be a bit more positive. So rather than saying don't throw sand or rocks, so allow your child to throw, but maybe let's find somewhere where they won't hit anyone or hit anything that will break, so that they are allowed to develop those skills of throwing, and they see what happens when they throw the sand and then it comes back in their face. These are things that children have to learn. They have to get these experiences. Otherwise, they will, they will miss out on so much knowledge of, cause and effect. So what can parents do to support their child's learning through play? So first of all, the most important thing you can do as parents is to value play as a valid form of learning. One thing we found during lockdown was I remember that there were a few parents from early years who were very happy to tell us that, oh, my child knows how to write the alphabet and all of their numbers, they know how to do addition and all of this. And inside I was cringing, because actually I was thinking you could have played with your child instead of sat with a worksheet. Playing would have been much more valuable for your child. So know that, play is so crucial for young children to be able to learn. That is how they learn. They won't learn through a worksheet. Talk to your child about what they enjoy playing with at nursery or at school. So think about, when the teachers do send photos on Dojo, then use that as a conversation starter. Spend time playing with your child at home, following their interests. And I know that everyone is busy. I know we all live busy lives, but please, you need to make some time for your child at home, not writing, but actually playing with them, getting down on their level and playing and following their lead. And extend your child's learning through quality interactions. So thinking about questions, comments, wondering out loud, modeling language. So remember, we talked about with questions, not to make it, like 20 questions and a quiz, because then children will shut down. But, asking questions, oh, I wonder what will happen if we do this. I wonder is a brilliant sentence starter, which will get a child thinking, and they won't even realize that they're being quizzed or questioned. So play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. So that is a beautiful quote that I thought really sums up the essence of this workshop. And children don't remember their best day of television. They don't remember the amazing worksheet that you found for them. They won't remember those kind of things. They'll remember going and jumping in the puddles. They'll remember getting a whole load of boxes and scribbling over them and making a den or a fort or something. They will remember going and, dancing in the rain. They'll remember all of those physical things of you being there with them and playing with them. I'm not saying that television doesn't have a place, and I'm not saying that worksheets don't have a place, but you are their greatest playmate. So make the most of their time while they're little, because they have the rest of their life to do the formal learning. They need to build that relationship with you through play. And play is important for our children's future success. Play builds the kind of free and easy, try it out, do it yourself character that our future needs. And I think if we learn anything from lockdown, and we have to learn that actually creativity is so crucial for the next set of problems that our children will face in the future. They need, to know how to communicate, collaborate, be creative. They need to know how to problem solve, and they will only do that by having a good foundation of play. And finally, some Islamic advice on play, which I thought was really quite beautiful. So this is from a book called Raising Children in Light of the Quran and Sunnah. And it says, do not trivialize the act of playing with children, for you will be clashing against their natures and the dispositions upon which they were created. Instead, participate with them in their games. Play with them and have fun with them to the point that they love you, enjoy your company, and heed your advice and guidance. And then there is this quote from Surah Al-Imran, where it is said, it is out of Allah's mercy that you have been lenient with them. Had you been cruel or hard-hearted, they would have certainly abandoned you. So I will leave you with this beautiful advice. And I hope this has been beneficial for you. If you have any questions, I will now be able to take questions from you. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.